In 1894, a market gunner on the Chesapeake Bay fired one shot from a punt gun and dropped 85 ducks at once. He sold them to a Baltimore hotel for more than a farmhand earned in a month. That gun is on this list, and today it could land you in federal prison. Most people picture old-fashioned hunting as a lone hunter in the woods, patiently waiting for the perfect shot. But the truth is far stranger. Many of America's most common hunting traditions have disappeared so completely that most people don't even know they existed. Some once fed entire towns. Others helped families survive brutal winters when there was no grocery store to rely on. Today, many of these methods are illegal in dozens of states, not because they stopped working, but because they worked far too well. These are the 10 forgotten hunting skills that are now quietly illegal in 40 states. Number 10. Jack lighting. Before electric flashlights existed, hunters discovered something unusual about deer. At night, when a lantern beam swept across a field, a deer's eyes reflected like glowing amber coins. Instead of running, the animal often froze, confused by the unfamiliar light. Experienced hunters carried oil lanterns or burning pine torches, quietly walking field edges until those glowing eyes appeared in the darkness. For frontier families, this wasn't considered cheating. It was simply the fastest way to bring home meat before sunrise. But wildlife officials eventually realized entire deer populations could be wiped out this way. Today, shining artificial lights to hunt big game is illegal in nearly every state, with penalties ranging from heavy fines to confiscated vehicles. Number 9. Salt lick hunting. Long before commercial deer attractants existed, hunters relied on ordinary livestock salt. A single salt block placed in a clearing would slowly attract deer, creating well-worn trails as animals returned day after day for the minerals they desperately needed. Generations of hunters considered it perfectly normal. But modern wildlife biologists discovered that concentrating deer in one location dramatically increases disease transmission, especially chronic wasting disease. As a result, baiting deer with salt or feed is now prohibited across much of the United States, turning one of history's simplest hunting tricks into a violation of game law. Number 8. Wire snares. During the Great Depression, many families couldn't afford guns or ammunition. Instead, they relied on something much simpler, a loop of brass wire carefully placed along a rabbit trail. The skill wasn't in setting the wire, it was knowing exactly where animals naturally traveled. A well-read trail could produce dinner without firing a single shot. Children often checked dozens of snares before school, helping feed entire households during hard times. Today, however, wire snares are heavily restricted or banned in many states because they don't discriminate. Pets, endangered wildlife, and non-target animals can all become trapped, making the once common survival skill largely illegal. Number 7. Hunting with hounds. For over 2 centuries, hunters across the American South depended on trained dogs rather than tree stands or trail cameras. Packs of hounds would push deer through thick swamps and forests where people simply couldn't walk, driving them toward waiting hunters. Entire bloodlines of hunting dogs were carefully bred for speed, scent, and endurance. Communities gathered every season around the tradition. But as private property became divided into smaller parcels, dogs regularly crossed fences and highways, creating conflicts between neighbors and increasing hunting accidents. One state after another restricted or banned the practice. While a few regions still allow it under strict rules, much of the country no longer does. Pattern break. Here's what surprises most people. None of these skills disappeared because hunters suddenly forgot them. They vanished because America nearly hunted many of its wild animals into extinction. By the late 1800s, market hunters supplied restaurants, hotels, and city markets with enormous quantities of wild game every single day. Deer, ducks, elk, and countless other species were disappearing at alarming rates. Conservation laws weren't created because these methods failed. They were created because they were devastatingly successful. Number 6. Live duck decoys. Imagine raising ducks, not for eggs or meat, but to convince wild ducks to land within shotgun range. Along the Chesapeake Bay, this became an entire industry. Hunters carefully bred tame ducks with loud, attractive calls. They tied them near hunting blinds where passing flocks naturally descended to join them. Nothing fooled migrating birds better than actual live birds. Federal law finally outlawed the practice in the 1930s after waterfowl populations collapsed during the Dust Bowl years. Today, using live decoys for migratory birds is illegal throughout the United States. Number 5. The punt gun, no hunting weapon in American history, was more extreme. A punt gun looked less like a shotgun and more like a small cannon. Mounted directly onto a narrow boat, its barrel could stretch nearly 10 feet long and fire nearly a pound of lead shot with one blast. Hunters quietly paddled toward sleeping flocks under cover of darkness before firing a single shot capable of killing dozens of ducks instantly. The recoil pushed the entire boat backward across the water. It was devastatingly efficient, and one of the biggest reasons waterfowl populations collapsed in the late 19th century. Today, hunting migratory birds with a punt gun is illegal nationwide. Number 4. Spring waterfowl hunting. For centuries, families hunted ducks and geese during spring migration. From a survival standpoint, it made perfect sense. Winter food supplies were nearly exhausted, while migrating birds arrived fat and plentiful after long journeys north. Then science revealed a devastating consequence. Every breeding duck harvested in spring meant an entire future brood would never hatch. The Migratory Bird Treaty Act ended spring waterfowl seasons more than a century ago, and they have never returned for general hunting. Number 3. Poisoning predators. Throughout much of American history, wolves, coyotes, and mountain lions were viewed as enemies of civilization. Governments actually paid bounties for predator carcasses, encouraging ranchers to lace meat with deadly poisons. Wolves disappeared from huge portions of the country. Eagles, bears, family dogs, and countless other animals died alongside them. Eventually, the ecological damage became impossible to ignore. Federal restrictions ended widespread predator poisoning, making the practice illegal almost everywhere today. Number 2. Fire drives long. Before firearms existed, entire communities hunted together using fire. Hunters carefully lit controlled rings of flame that slowly pushed deer, elk, and other animals toward waiting hunters. Indigenous peoples perfected this technique over thousands of years, shaping North America's grasslands in the process. It required extraordinary knowledge of weather, wind direction, and fire behavior. Today, combining wildfire with hunting violates both game laws and fire regulations across the country, making one of humanity's oldest hunting techniques effectively extinct. Number 1. Hunting whenever you needed food. The most forgotten hunting skill isn't a weapon or a trap. It's the simple idea that people once hunted whenever they were hungry. For thousands of years, there were no licenses, seasons, or bag limits. If your family needed food in July, you hunted in July. If winter was harsh, you hunted through winter. Survival, not recreation, determined when the hunt began. Modern conservation changed that forever. Today, every state carefully regulates when animals may be harvested, how many can be taken, and even the methods hunters can use. Those laws helped restore wildlife populations that once stood on the brink of collapse. But they also marked the end of a way of life that had existed for countless generations. The skills themselves never disappeared. Only the laws changed.